Hello everybody. Today we're going to talk about pairs of words that often confuse English speakers, native and non-native. This is one of the few videos that I'm making that actually both or everyone who uses English has problems at some point with these pairs. So we're going to talk about 7 examples and hopefully try to form a few rules or guidelines by which you can then navigate the other difficult pairs. So we're going to look at 7 today, and I'll begin by just explaining, I've already explained it, but explaining the purpose of this live. And the purpose of this live in video is to help clarify the difference between 2 or more words that are often confused by speakers of English. Whether you're learning English or whether you grew up speaking English, everyone struggles with at least 1 or 2 of these pairs. If you have questions, you can press the question button at the bottom of your screen and you can write your question, and I will look at all questions at the end of the video. So please hold the questions, be patient, and I will get to them. Let's look at the first one. Let's get started. Lie, lay. Lie, lay. So I want to talk about this by first looking at the meanings. Lie has 2 common meanings. To recline in a horizontal position, to lie down, or to tell an untruth, to say something that's not true, deliberately not true, to lie. And then the lay is to put something down, an object down. I lay the phone down on the table. All right, those are the meanings, but let's talk about why the confusion exists. And as you look at these, you'll see that we have lie, to not tell the truth, lied, lied. So that's not to tell the truth. Then to lie down, we have lie, lay, simple past. I have lain, the perfect tense. And then to lay something down on the table, we have lay, present tense, laid, laid. And so the difficulty is not with the lie and lie, although those are 2, the same word, different meanings, both verbs. But the reason that's not an issue is because lying and not telling the truth is very different from lying down on the sofa. So very few people have this problem. Where the confusion comes in is with lay, past simple, to lie down, and lay, present simple, to lay something down. That is the confusion. So I want to look at 2 examples to address this and hopefully make this a bit easier. So one more time, it's the past simple, the past simple and the present simple lay. Let's take a look at 2 examples to hopefully clear this up. I lay the book on the table, present tense. I lay down yesterday afternoon because I was tired, so I slept. Past tense. Lay, lay. One is present simple. I lay the book down. The other is past simple. I lay down yesterday. All right, let's look at one more example. You can ask questions. I can look at them later if you're still confused. Oh, I think that's the only example I have, unfortunately. So if you have other examples you would like to make, then go ahead and do it. Let's look at the second one. This is also tricky. Now, interestingly, I have placed the most difficult examples, the most problematic at the beginning. So they will gradually, I think, get a little bit easier, let's hope. But these are difficult. Exchange and substitute and replace. Let's look at these. Now, the issue, the problem, the difficulty is in the conjugation, because all of them I'm using as verbs. So the confusion, if it exists, generally exists in the verb form. In the verb form. So I want to look at the two most common problems, and that's substitute and replace. I substituted John for Sally. So Sally left and John came. I substituted John for Sally. So oftentimes you hear this in sporting. So one person will go off the pitch and another person will go on. Now, so that you collocate that to substitute for. To substitute someone or something for someone or something. Now here's where it gets tricky. So relax and just try to understand it, and we'll do one more example. I replaced Sally with John. Sally left and John came. The first sentence and the second sentence mean the same thing. Sally left and John came, but we express it differently, and you see the order is reversed when we use substitute and when we use replaced. And that is the difficulty right there. That's the nub. That's the crux of the issue. The nub or the crux is that key point. That's it right there. To replace someone or something with someone or something. And then finally, we have exchange. And normally an exchange is, you exchange objects. You normally don't exchange people, but I used this same example. I exchanged John and Sally. They changed places. Here we don't know who came and who left, but if we exchange someone for something or someone for someone else, then you have the same pattern as you do replace and substitute. I exchanged John with Sally. I exchanged John for Sally. The truth is you don't often use people in this sort of example with exchange, although you can in sports. They exchanged. One went in and one went out. But the real issue is substitute and replace. So let's go ahead and look at one more example. Before we do, here we go. I substituted ice cream for chocolate. I substituted ice cream for chocolate. Chocolate left, ice cream came. I replaced chocolate with ice cream. Chocolate left, ice cream came. I prefer ice cream. In both cases, ice cream is what I prefer, or ice cream is the one that's left. Chocolate left or was replaced. One more time. I substituted ice cream for chocolate bars. So now I have ice cream. I used to have chocolate, now I have ice cream. I replaced chocolate bars with ice cream. So now I have ice cream. So why is it difficult? Because the order is reversed to arrive at the same meaning. This is complicated. You'll have to practice this. You'll have to practice this. All right, I hope that's clear though. I substitute someone or something for, and I replace someone or something with. All right. Let's look at, let's go to the next example, and that's lend and borrow, a very difficult one. We often confuse these. Meanings, let's get the meanings down. When you lend when you give something to someone, often temporarily. I lend you my phone. I lend you my phone. You now have my phone. I've given it to you for a short time. Borrow when you receive something. So I borrow this phone from my friend. He gave it to me for a short time. All right, now I think we understand the meanings, But when it comes to execution of the sentences, it gets a little bit more complicated. All right, here we go. I lent him the book. I gave him my book. I lent him the book. Subject, verb, indirect object, direct object. Less common, I lent a book to him. I lent a book to him. All right. Borrowed. I borrowed from somebody else. I borrowed a book from him. Now, where's the problem? A lot of people say, I borrowed him a book. I lent him a book is how we say that. So this is the problem. I borrowed him a book is bad English. Don't do it. So how do we remember this? I think you can do it a few ways, but lending him is subject, verb, indirect object, direct object. I borrow a book is subject, verb, object, plus prepositional phrase. I borrowed a book from him. I lent him a book. Now, we're going to practice this with it. I would like you to try. This is a little bit tricky, but I'd like you to do, we have some in-class homework. I think, yeah, here we go. All right, here I would like you to think about the sentences and try to construct them appropriately. So here we go. I want you to make the sentence. We have Mary, lent, borrowed, so past tense, Chris and car. So make two sentences starting with Maria. Maria, and use these others starting with Maria. Form two sentences, one with lent, one with borrowed, both involving Chris and a car. So I'll give you a minute to try that. All right, let's see how we did. Are you ready? Some of you might have sent it to me. Others might have just written it down or done it in your head. That's fine. Here are the answers. Maria lent Chris her car. Maria borrowed the car from Chris. Maria lent Chris her car. Subject, verb, indirect object, direct object. Maria borrowed the car, subject, verb, object, preposition, from someone, from Chris. How did we do? I'm very curious how we did on this. I probably should have given homework on this. I apologize. Let's see, we might do something. All right, another one that causes confusion that I want to simplify for you all is affect and effect. Affect and effect. They are similar and they often cause confusion, and I want to simplify and clarify this today so that you will be more confident in using them. Are you ready for this? Here we go. All right, the meanings, I think, are very similar. Affect is to have an effect on someone, to make a difference. Effect is a change as a consequence of an action. I think we all know that they have similar meanings. An affect, although an affect is generally negative, I have to say. Effect can be, in my experience, positive and negative, but affect, in my experience, is generally negative. But here's the difference. Meanings are similar. You're not going to feel the difference, I don't think, in the meanings. But here's where you get at the crux of this. how to undo the confusion, how to resolve the confusion or resolve the problem. Use affect as a noun. Use affect as a verb. And then everything is fine. In 99.9% of the cases, follow this rule and you never have to worry about confusing them. The positive effect, that's the subject. It's also a noun. The noun happens to be the subject. The positive effect of studying English for 6 months was apparent. Apparent means obvious. It was clear to see. Now, his English was affected. Again, remember I said this verb affect is normally used in a negative context. His English was affected by the lack of speaking practice for the past 6 months. It's used as a verb, and there are no confusions. You know that you won't use affect. Now, let me just say for the word sleuths out there, sleuth is a great word, S-L-E-U-T-H. Word sleuths are those who are really good with words. They know they're an expert in words, will know that affect can also be used as a verb. This is true. But in 99% of the cases, you can use affect as a noun and you can use affect as a verb, and there'll be no problem. You can occasionally see this. I'll give you if you do see a verb, it's normally this collocation. Something affected change. Something affected change is a very common collocation of the verb, which is not commonly used. It's normally used as a noun. But if you see it as a verb, it's often collocated with change, which makes sense given its meaning. All right, I hope that clears it up. Affect is a noun, affect is a verb, and you shouldn't struggle. Advice, advise. And interestingly, the same pattern or the same rule holds here. Advice as a noun, advise with an S as a verb. Let's take a look. They have similar meanings, so we don't need to parse the meanings. Parse, P-A-R-S-E. To parse something is to go into more detail, to find the small differences. We don't need to parse the meanings here. They're basically the same. Where the difference lies is obviously the spelling and the function of the word. Advice with a C is a noun. Advise with a S is a verb. And of course you can hear the difference. Advice, advise. There's a Z on the verb, advise, advise. Let's try it. Advice, advise, advice, advise. So my advice to you is, that's a very common, perhaps the most common collocation of advice. My advice to you is don't go. Advise, very common. I advise you to go. We have conflicting opinions here. All right, advice as a noun, advise as a verb, and you'll never have a problem. So you can understand the difference in this case 3 ways. By your ear, advice, advise. By the spelling, C or S. And by the function of the word, noun versus a verb. 3 clues as to distinguish these 2 very closely related words. All right, number 6 is lose and loose. So let's practice firstly the pronunciation, because this is clue, and cause of the confusion. Loose, so to lose, and then loose. To lose, loose. Lose, loose. All right, let's look at lose. It's a verb. That's the first difference. Obviously, the spelling is different. 1 O versus 2, and the sound or pronunciation is also different. So lose is I lose, I lost, I have lost. That's how you conjugate that verb. The team lost its match. She lost her watch. Now, loose is generally an adjective. So it's a completely different word. Not firmly or tightly fixed in place. She had a loose tooth. You could move it. She had a loose, or she has a loose tooth. If you have a loose tooth, you can jiggle it. We say jiggle, Jiggle. It's probably a new word. You can jiggle your tooth. You can move your tooth. It jiggles means it moves back and forth, but you can jiggle it. If it's loose, you can jiggle it. Now, there's a very famous idiom that you should know about with loose. He's a loose cannon. Now, a cannon is what they used to fight in military battles in the 19th century and earlier. They used to use cannons. They would have these big cannonballs, and they would fire them in these cannons. A loose cannon is someone who is unpredictable. You can't predict their actions, so you're nervous. If you invite someone to your house and to your house party and they're a loose cannon, you don't know what can happen. They could start an argument, they could break something. It's a problem. He's a loose cannon. He's unpredictable. He's not controllable. And you have to be careful. All right, so let's just review. Lose, I lost my watch. And loose, a loose tooth. Now, like affect, which can be sometimes used as a verb, loose can sometimes be also used as a verb, but very rarely. If you loose the dogs on someone, you let them go. This is more literary. You might read it. You probably won't say it very much. I might say it because I enjoy using these sort of uncommon uses of the words, because I think it adds to the richness and variety of the language. But in general, you're not going to hear it used as a verb, but technically it can be. They loosed the dogs on them. So the dogs were let go to maybe protect the property. All right, I hope that's clear. If it's not clear, you can ask questions. And we have the final one. Are you ready for the final example? It is compliment and compliment. And honestly, it's hard to hear the difference. Compliment, compliment. Almost no difference. Compliment, compliment. Plement, pliment. Very, very similar. You normally derive or understand the difference from the context. Let's look at the first of all, the definitions, because some of you might not confuse these because you don't know them yet. So let's introduce them to you. Compliment, I think everyone knows. To say something nice about someone. Thanks for the compliment. It's nice to meet you. I put up a post, a story recently where I showed the different compliments, where viewers were complimenting me about my Instagram account. Those are compliments when you say nice things like, great job, you're doing a great job, very interesting videos. These are compliments. Now, compliment. The second one is a thing that contributes extra features to something else to improve it. So let me give you an example. White wine is the perfect complement to fish. So it adds to the flavor of dinner. It adds to the meal, the dining experience. When you combine or pair is a nice one. When you pair white wine with fish. All right, so that's to compliment. If someone says they complement each other, it means that this person and this person make each other better. So in life, you want to find friends and partners that complement you, not tear you down, but complement you, that they highlight your positive features and make them glow ever brighter. That's what we want in life. People who compliment us. Also compliment in the first meaning, but also in the second. I hope you understand the difference. Compliment, the first one, is when you say things to someone generally. You can write them, but generally you say them. And then I reply, thanks for the compliment. All right, let's review before we go to questions. Now, this review is the conclusion, I think, is really important. For some of you, you might have known most of these, but this conclusion, oh no. Oh, here it is. The conclusion is really important for today's video. So listen to this. When you're struggling between two similar words, there are generally three features. One of these three features is generally going to help you distinguish between the two. The form of the word, advise, advice. So advice is the noun, advise is the verb, affect is the noun, affect is the verb. So the form of the word can help you distinguish. The collocation of the word, how it's collocated, what words come before and after it. I substitute someone with, I replace someone, I substitute for, I replace with, I borrow something from someone, I lend someone something. So how we collocate is a second way to make distinctions between two closely looking words. And then finally the spelling, loose, lose, complement, complement. The spellings can also, and also advice, advise, affect, affect, spellings. Know your spellings with these closely paired words. Memorize them. You've got to just focus on them. When they're so closely spelled, you've got to pay extra attention to the spelling. One letter makes a big difference. All right, the form of the word, verb or noun or adjective, the collocation, what comes before or after it, and the spelling. These are clues to helping you understand or distinguish between closely paired words. All right, I hope this was helpful. Give me your comments and feedback on this,